Hey guys, welcome back. This is Steve, your electronic mechanic. If you recall, last time we were together, we got to the point where the Camaro steering wheel was lighted. It was reading our signal, and it had at least been able to wake up from being, let's say, asleep. So let's kind of plug ourselves back in here. If you see, our lights are back on, and they are consistently staying on now. Again, that means that the system is listening to our signal. Now, there's a couple things I wanted to cover before I move on, because I misspoke in my last video. This send break section, this is actually a section where it has to do with the LIN protocol, which dictates that you need to have a certain amount of break time in the beginning of the actual LIN message that gets sent out. And so, when I said we were turning this on, we were turning it off, it really had to do with setting the LIN TX pin low, which means we're creating a break for 13 bits or 1300 microseconds, and then we're turning it back on right after that. So, that's LIN protocol dictates that we must have this break at the beginning of a message. Okay? And then the second one, which is this PID. Again, I went about explaining it, but the more I read about it, the more I understand it better. What it actually is think of it similar to a checksum. If you're familiar with checksums, checksum is sort of like doing math against something and then making sure it's correct. The best, maybe I can give a simple example of this is, imagine every time you buy a pair of gloves, right? You have a left glove and a right glove. Well, imagine if when you bought the left glove, you made sure that there was a blue dot on the outside, because that blue dot indicates that it's the left hand. It's a glove, it's got 5 fingers, but it's also the left hand. You have a red dot on the right hand. When you buy those, you're always going to look for those left hand, right hand to make sure the glove was put on the correct hand correctly. That's what these parity IDs do. So your typical message that gets sent is 6 bits, and then there's 2 parity IDs that get calculated, and this is the LIN bus standard of calculating those parity IDs. Okay, so again, we fumbled our way through it yesterday. I didn't really understand it as clearly as I should have, but now I do, and now you do. Okay, so when we create and we send this header, we are sending it based on, we're calculating our first parity ID, right? So it's our ID plus our parity ID. We are going to send a break, which means we're creating that first low period for that signal. Then we are going to send 0x55, and then we're going to send our parity ID. That is the way we send our wake up. Okay, so this is sending the wake up message. And again, what I read is that the 0x55, this is the standard for LIN bus waking up. Okay, so now we have all this. What do we want to do? Okay, what is the next thing we want to do? Well, obviously, we want to actually start reading. We want to start reading data. So how do we go about doing that? Well, just like we did in our loop where we send our header, here we're actually going to read, we're going to say read response. Okay, so we want to get a response back. Now, again, I like to handle this within its own separate formula, its own separate function. Okay, sorry about that. So let's create the function to read the response. Void read response. We're going to have no variable inputs, and this is where we're going to read our response. Now, the first thing we want to do, once again, is we want to Remember what I said last time we were together? I talked about our response timeout. We don't want it to take, if we don't get a response, we don't want to sit here waiting for a response for forever. Okay? So we're going to want to set ourselves up so that we have a start time. Okay? Then we're going to say while our start time, so while our current time minus our start time, so the time elapsed, is less than our response timeout, which if you recall, when we defined it last time, we said it's 25 milliseconds. When it is all less than that, then we are going to execute our listen. We are going to listen for the data, okay? So the first thing we want to do is we want to say we're only going to read the data while serial 2 is available. We don't want to read it while it's been taken over or it's currently sending, so only while it's available. All right, and then what we want to do is we want to read it. Very, very simply put. And we are going to read that into our byte. And that's where we're going to store it. So at this point, B should have data in it. It should. Now, what I like to do is I like to I don't want to call anything I don't want to attempt to do anything unless we have data that's actually been, pulled. So we're going to create a simple got data flag for us, and then we're going to say in here, if not got data, then we're going to flip it. Okay? So now that we've flipped whether or not we've gotten data, let's see if we can actually print to our serial. So we're going to try something like serial. Now we're going to do serial 1 because remember serial 1 is where we print our data, and we're going to print this and it's going to come in hex format. Okay, so anytime something comes through, we should see it. We should see that, and I'm going to put print line just so that I get a new line every single time. So let's see what happens. We'll send this up in, and now this is just going to tell us whether or not we can read the data, whether we're getting it from our actual system. It has nothing to do with interpreting the data. Okay, and I clearly had a spell check problem, so let's take a look. Are there any other ones? There are. Okay, I think that last one might just be, oh, you know what? This is probably because it's a function. We'll see. Yep. Okay, I don't know what that was. All right, well, I'm not entirely sure what that error was, but it looks like we're uploading. Now are completed uploading. Now, to see if this is working, to see if it's in action, once again, our lights are still on here. I can confirm that our lights are still on. And I am now going to go to Tools, and I'm going to go to Serial Monitor. Okay, so right now you can see we have 55 being constantly broadcast, and I believe the 80 is... Oh, so the 55 is our simple broadcast, and the 80 is our Parity ID. And so you can see it's constantly being sent out on the serial, right? Now let's just see what happens if we press a button. Okay. Nothing being responded. So, at least I know we're sending data out on the serial, but we're not getting anything in, which is interesting. What could be going on here? All right, guys, so it's been a few hours, and I've been tinkering this for quite a while, and I realized what I was missing. So in order for this to work properly, you need to have a common ground between your ESP32 and your LIN bus system and your bench supply. So I've added on one particular trace here, and I'm going to add that to the ground. And what we should see is in our actual grouping here, we should see it shoot up with a whole bunch of extra information. Okay, now you see a whole lot of information being passed through. And what this is it's actually us sending information to the LIN bus system, and the LIN bus actually responding. The Malexis chip is responding to us. So now we are sending out information. The Malexis chip is listening and sending back a response, and we are now looking at the response. However, this response is way too fast. We can barely see what's going on here. So we're going to slow it down just a little bit by adding in a delay. And for this opportunity, we're gonna add a delay in of 250 milliseconds, or about quarter of a second. So I'm gonna go ahead and upload that into the ESP32, and we will then take a look at if we can interpret what's happening. Now, once this finishes loading, like all reverse engineering and data interpretation, we're going to watch the data, and when we make a change, so you can see here, every time it runs, the last 7 bytes here are what get passed, and you can see nothing is changing. It's always the static same bytes that are being passed. We are going to press a button, and then we're going to record what changes, okay? And remember, the ones we want to focus in on here are these middle 3 bytes, because these are really the ones that the system is passing back to us. The bytes in the beginning are our wake-up signal, right, and our prompt signal, and the bytes on the back are bytes that are basically closing out the message. So let's focus on the 0, and the 40 here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press volume up. Okay, so when I hold volume up, what changes? The second 0 changes to a 4. Okay, now remember, we're going to ignore the byte at the very end, but the second 0 changes to a 4. Well, that is our first byte, this is our second byte, this is our third, and this is our fourth. So we're going to say volume plus byte 4 equals 4. We're going to do this for the rest of the buttons. So volume minus, okay, volume minus is byte 4 equals 8. Favorite minus, okay, byte 4 equals 2. And favorite up, byte 4 equals 1. Okay, now we're going to go to our actual pad here. We're going to press up. Okay, so byte 4 equals 10. We're going to press down. Byte 4 equals 20. Left. Byte 4 equals 40. And I'm assuming it's byte 4, and byte 4 equals 80. Now, let's press the select button. Aha. Notice, byte 4 didn't change, but byte 5 changed. Okay, byte 5 changed from 40 to 41. So we're going to say byte select, byte 5 equals 41. Let's do the hang up button. Byte 5 equals 44. And if we press talk, byte 5 equals 42. Byte 5 equals 42. Okay, so now we actually have a pretty solid understanding of the signal for each of these. Now notice, every single second, it's reading 7 bytes. Okay, so we need to find a way to actually pinpoint what byte is being output and then mark down what actual byte that is. So what we can do is we can create a counter. So let's say int, we're going to call this mel underscore counter. And when we first get into our, now all of this probably should go up in read response, so I'm going to grab that and I'm going to bring it up here because this is where it's actually all happening. Because we don't want to do it directly in there. Honestly, I was down there just to put the delay in. But let's do this. So right now we're reading our bytes. Let's try something like this. Int mel counter equals 0. Okay, and now when we're gonna, every time we want to read, we're gonna say mel counter plus plus, so that the first byte comes in, it's the first byte. The counter is the first byte. The second byte comes in, which is your 80, that's counter 2. The third is the next counter. So let us do this now. Let's say if mel counter equals 4, and so we're on the 4th byte because we're going to be checking this one, and that byte, so we're going to say b, because this is the byte that's being read, right, equals 0x, and let's say volume plus is 4, so we're going to say 0.4. Let's see if we can actually put something in here. let's say we want to display serial.print, let's say print line. We just pressed volume plus. Because, guys, if we can get the system, all we have to do is identify a way for us to be able to press a button and for it to display text here, and then we could do anything. We can press the button up, we can press the button down, we can light up LEDs, we can control the Camaro's audio controls. We could do anything. So let's see what happens. Let's give this a try. So we just wrote this little bit of code here, and let's take a look. Let's see if it compiles, and let's see if it goes into the ESP32. Okay, read response, not declared in this scope. What did we mess up? Line 75. If mel counter equals, I mean, is it this? Perhaps. Okay, now we've got hard reset. Now it's done uploading. Let's flip over to our serial monitor, and we see this going through. And let's try to see what happens if we press volume up. Aha! Amazing. We are getting volume up signals coming through. This is exactly what we want, guys. I'm super excited about this. Okay, so now it's merely just, let's do a couple things, right? Let's, now remember, there were a couple that have byte 4. So let's get a little bit more complicated here, and let's do something like this. If B equals 1, and now let's do this. Let's copy paste. So now we've got 2, 4, 8, 10, 20, 40, 80. And let's go back to our descriptions here so we can actually mark what is what. So this is volume minus. We have, oh, sorry, let's see. 1 is favorite up. Favorite down. Volume plus. Volume minus. Up. Down, left, right. Okay, and let's do another one. Let's say else, right? Because we only have 2 things, right? We have mel counter 4, and then we have mel counter 5. So if it's not mel counter 4, it's going to be pretty much mel counter 5. So we'll say if B equals what was it? 41, 42, and 44, right? Okay, let's put in and let's see now if we can trigger all of these. Okay, so now we have our bytes coming through, and let's see. Volume up, volume down, favorite up, favorite down, down, up, left, right, select, talk, hang up. Beautiful. Beautiful. Guys, we are now able to read what message is being sent back by the Malexis chip. And that's going to give us a huge opportunity to actually start taking action against some of these things. Okay? So what I'm going to do in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to make it a little more fancy based on how we write this. So I'm going to take out the constant showing of these. I'm going to take out our delay. Let's have this thing run full speed. It probably will just be sending a whole bunch of blanks through here unless we press a button. So let's give this a shot. Okay, so we see everything it's running about 1 million miles an hour here. And let's see what happens if we press volume up. All right, we're getting volume up, volume down, favorite up, favorite down. Press select, press right, up. Amazing, amazing. That's exactly what we wanted to come through. Awesome. Well, guys, we're going to take a break here for today. We are now able to interpret these signals, thankfully, and we will get to actually, now that we're interpreting the signals and we're reading what button is being pressed, what do we have the system actually do now that we're actually reading the signals? So, thank you very much, guys. I'm glad you joined. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.